The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
If I get the feeling you've been cheated.
It is Tuesday, April 26, 2022. My name is Sam Seder. This is the five-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, the executive editor of the American Prospect, David Dayen. On the accidental revolution. Also on the program today, U.S. reportedly to reopen its embassy in Kyiv in a bid to heighten U.S. involvement in the war. Meanwhile, as the latest Ukraine funding package being developed, Senate may include food aid. Donald Trump told by Republicans, stay off the new Twitter. Meanwhile, a Trump-appointed judge says the government cannot exempt migrants from Title 42 prior to rescission in May. Texas Supreme Court halts an execution of a 53-year-old woman. Donald Trump found in contempt in the New York Attorney General inquiry. Supposedly got to pay $10,000 a day. He doesn't deliver certain documents. Speaking of Trump, Ron DeSantis signs election crimes office bill into law in Florida. Beijing starts a lockdown to fight COVID. Paxlovid to become more widely available in this country. And yet another study, peer-reviewed, saying ivermectin useless for COVID. Lastly, Joe Biden to commute the sentences of 75 drug offenders. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining us. I am here solo today. Emma is taking a much-deserved day off. I am here having walked to the office for the first time in 2.5 weeks. It was exhausting. I literally had to take a nap immediately, but I am here, and I have tested negative for the first time this morning on an antigen test. I'm a little skeptical about it. I had tests that I took about a week ago that were really faint, but the two tests from that one box were both faint, and then the next day I was solid positive again. So when I go home, I'll take another test. But I have been told by everything I've read and by a doctor I've consulted with that it is highly unlikely that I am contagious at this point. I wear a mask wherever I go anyways, except for in this office. And of course, I'm sitting across. We're all in the club now.
I'm back too.
Yep. Bradley is also back. And we're all within 90 days, right? Are you within 90 days?
Of having it? I got it around Christmas, so I think probably just over 90 days.
Okay. Well, that would be bad if I gave it to you, but I don't think, like I say, I don't think I'm
pretty
contagious
sure
at this point.
I'm pretty sure I'm above it now.
Whoa. All that said is great to be back. Thank you all for your indulgence. Just want to follow up on a phone call we got yesterday. and we got a phone call from Brennan from Boston, and we clipped it, and Jane McAlevey, who I thought would be a great resource for this person, among others, responded on Twitter. The question was, what?
We can play it if you want.
Oh yeah, okay. Let's play the audio.
I
All
work
right.
for a social working company, and talking to a lot of my coworkers, a lot of them seem frustrated with the inability of our company to really promote itself to the state, and the fact that we need more support for not only people who work here, because a lot of them are overworked, and also underpaid, but also like the people we need to help aren't getting the support they need in the state.
Okay.
If you followed a lot of what happened in like the Boston mayor race, there were some comments about like homelessness and how these people need to be in programs. Well,
Okay, that's good there. All right. Well, the basic gist was that Brennan wanted to know like how he would go about organizing a union, perhaps for their shop. And in addition to sort of mentioning some other potential places that he could reach out, I said, you could probably tweet at Jane McAlevey because she's always running workshops, and she's one of the best labor organizers that I've come across, and we've interviewed her multiple times.
Mhm.
And we posted that clip. She responded. SEIU Local 509 is the union in Massachusetts for Brennan, social workers, private and public. Notes below from my most recent book. Key is to talk to rank and file members before selecting a union. Start your own. Also, see the Amazon labor union, form a group, and register for our free course by May 3rd. So there it is. Well timed.
That
And she's great. She responded very quickly to that. So always a great resource. Meanwhile, a lot of stuff involving Marjorie Taylor Greene today. In addition to the fact that there is a trove of texts to Mark Meadows, the chief of staff, Donald Trump's chief of staff, at the end of his term. She had texted him on January 6th and in the days following and before. We will get to that later. Also, I just want to just point out and make a point of this, and I will reiterate this later. She was sworn in days early. It was like a January 2nd. Is it when you get sworn in? Backbencher, theoretically, we're told she's insignificant, right? No. She had the chief of staff to the president of the United States cell phone number within days of being sworn in. This is a freshman congressperson. And, granted, now she's one of the top fundraisers for the Republicans. I could understand why that would happen at a time like now. But at that time, very interesting. In and of itself, it seems to me to be fairly unique. We'll ask about that later. But she was down at the border. Kevin McCarthy has pulled out all the stops to make sure that the audio that came out about him dissing Donald Trump is being ignored. And so they head down to the border. The Biden administration is looking to rescind Title 42, which is an ancient statute about immediately ejecting immigrants or not even allowing them to go through the process of determining whether their refugee status or their immigrant status would be recognized by the United States on the grounds of health issues, supposedly COVID-19 in this instance. As you know, if you are in America, we are convinced that there is no more COVID-19. It is completely irrelevant. And therefore, it seems absurd that we would keep immigrants out based upon that notion. As the COVID-19 that we have here, 35% rise in hospitalizations in New York State alone, is irrelevant. No reason to think that anyone else's COVID would be any more relevant. But so this is being rescinded in the third week of May. A judge, a Trump appointed judge, just ruled that there cannot be any waivers to it that have been going on apparently at the border until without determining whether or not the Biden administration can rescind Title 42. Here is Marjorie Taylor Greene speaking at the border, talking about what will happen if Title 42 is repealed. This is essentially Donald Trump coming down the escalator and coming out and saying, you know, some of them are probably good people, but the rest are rapists.
The human suffering that has happened and is happening and will happen if Title 42 is repealed and lifted, and the amount of people that are expected to come across this border starts coming, this will bring human suffering, death, and crime like we have never seen. And we're already seeing it at numbers and elevated numbers that we've never witnessed before in our lives. Imagine being a mother and you
Stop
can't
for one moment. None of what she said is true. I mean, it's sort of hard to sort of nail down what she's saying, but the crime and human misery that we're seeing right now, we've seen before. In fact, I'm not even clear what crime and misery she's talking about. There is no indication that there is a jump in crime because of immigrants in this country or misery. If she's very concerned about the misery, she should probably talk to her fellow lawmakers who have allowed the one measure that lifted a third, half of children in this country out of poverty, who are in poverty, and has been rescinded. That, if they're worried about that type of human suffering, she might want to look into that. But let's continue here.
Imagine being a mother and you can't let your children go play outside in the yard because there are people that you don't know who they are invading your country, coming across your property, and imagine what they could do to your kids. Imagine being a woman and you're just trying to get your groceries out of your car to carry them in the house, and you are faced with men who don't even belong in your carport, and that's where they are because they invaded our country.
I mean, they're back. They're back. Gearing up for it. More on that as the program continues. Meanwhile, first a word from our sponsor. I think I mentioned this before. I think we've done an ad for them before. We got this product years ago. Nutrafol. It is a natural holistic solution for men that promotes both healthier hair and whole body wellness. And I think at one point, like, you know, I was going to try and see if Michael wanted to use it or not. I can't remember. We had it in the office, and I don't remember if we ended up running any ads for it. And at one point, as I was cleaning out the office, I said this Nutrafol here, and Emma had said that she had a friend who had an illness. It caused her hair to fall out, and she took Nutrafol and had great results. And I was like, oh, I mean, you know, I don't know. I don't even know if we ever ran those ads. And then just coincidentally, Nutrafol asked if they could run ads on the program. And based upon the experience that Emma's friend had, I was like, sure. And it turns out that Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement. It's a supplement, and it's not, you know, it is more attuned to holistic health. It's about vitamins, and they have hair growth nutraceuticals, I guess, which go beyond genetics to multi-target the root causes of thinning hair, including stress, hormones, for nutrition, metabolism, aging, lifestyle, like I say, through a whole body health solution. Each formula is physician formulated. They use natural patented technology, provides consistent and reliable results, and it does not compromise your sexual health. Studies have showed that men showed progressive improvement in hair growth and thickness after 3 and 6 months. So you can grow thicker, healthier hair and get free shipping on every order for $15 off now. Go to Nutrafol.com/men. That's spelled Nutrafol.com/men with promo code majority. This is their best offer anywhere. It's only available to U.S. customers for a limited time. That's $15 off at Nutrafol.com, spelled Nutrafol.com/men. Use the promo code majority. All right. Want to welcome back to the program the executive editor of The American Prospect, David Dayen. David, welcome back to the program.
Hi, are you flying solo today?
I am flying solo today. Emma is getting a well-deserved day off. I don't know that you were aware, but I have been off for 2 weeks. I got a little bit of the COVID.
Oh,
And this is my first day back into the studio.
well, you look great.
Oh, thank you, David. That's very sweet. That's very sweet of you to say. But while I was on my forced vacation, I saw your piece, Accidental Revolution. I figured I would love to discuss this with you. Well, let me ask you one question before we get into that. This is completely off topic.
Why not?
You may or may not know. I was just reading through, some of those text messages to Mark Meadows, which are pretty hilarious, actually, around January 6th. Was it weird that Marjorie Taylor Greene, 4 days after being sworn in as a freshman congressperson, has the cell phone number for the chief of staff of the president?
I mean, it's not like she was, it was pretty well known she was going to be a congressman from the moment she won the primary. So it's not like you show up at orientation
right
3 days before and she obviously had.
Do all
she was pretty well known as someone who was on the MAGA right well before being sworn in. So yeah.
All right.
I mean, it's certainly possible.
It struck me as impressive. Like I feel like
she's an impressive person.
Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. All right. So let's move on to your piece of Accidental Revolution. And I want to go through. There's a lot of it that starting with, where we are in terms of the outlook for the Democrats, 2022, 2024, 2026. Broadly speaking, there's not a lot of positive things to look at the moment, at least in terms of when we look at control of the government.
Yeah, there's certainly been a really despair-filled vibe, which is, I think, somewhat the steady state of Democrats in America. But I think at this point there's some reason for that despair. I mean, you see the very low approval ratings, bad polling on the generic ballot, and it's hard to find a path. Although it's early, but it at this moment, if the election were held today, there would not be a Democratic majority in the House and probably not in the Senate. And then you just sort of extend that forward. The 2024 Senate map is really tough for Democrats. It's the 2018 map, which in a year where Democrats, really broke through, they lost a couple seats in the Senate, and even those who remain are people like John Tester and Joe Manchin and Sherrod Brown, and people in very tough races. And there's almost no difficult races on the Republican side. So you look at that. You look at where Biden's approval ratings are at. Obviously, projecting into 2024 right now is kind of a fool's errand. But if you carry that all forward, and you look at the structural inequities in democratic politics and just our electoral system, you can plausibly play out, and many people have plausibly played out this scenario of a filibuster-proof majority for Republicans in 2024 with a Republican president, and no longer the kinds of Republicans that stifled progress in the 2016 to 2020 era. People like McCain, like Corker, like the sort of keepers of the flame of sort of moderate-ish Republicanism.
I also, you mentioned there is a sort of what you call a democratic politics being structurally moribund, and let's talk about that a little bit. I mean, just I guess one thing that just struck me this week too, as I was looking at this, that I don't know is necessarily related to that, but it seems somewhat problematic. Joe Manchin's approval rating in West Virginia is up. Like, whatever he's been doing, cutting off material benefits to a state that is I believe the poorest in the country, has helped his approval rating. What I mean,
of course it has. He stopped the Democratic agenda, and that's a very Republican state. I mean, I don't see that being that big a deal for Democrats writ large. You're talking about a state Trump won by 40 points. Yeah, of course they like, a senator that was, high profile, the main impediment to any kind of Democratic agenda. So yeah, of course. But I mean, makes sense.
It is, when you put it that way, in terms of like he is running against the brand of the Democrats.
Yeah,
which I think it ties into the sort of the problem that the Democrats have in their leadership's inability to sort of transcend that on some level.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Democratic problems, I think, are pretty multivariate. They've lost the ability to speak outside a pretty narrow base centered in the big cities. They have really been completely obliterated in rural America. They're starting to lose ground among Latino voters in particular, which is probably the biggest near-term problem for Democratic majorities of anything. And that's not implicated in West Virginia, but it's implicated in a lot of places around the country. And then when I said structurally moribund, I mean, I'm really talking about sort of the policy agenda that we had this situation with Build Back Better, where all these sort of siloed groups were decided that they could capitalize on this moment in time. Nothing was prioritized by leadership, and the policymaking apparatus itself, which a couple stories from people like Matt Brunig have talked about, is really damaged. There's kind of this groupthink. Nobody wants to criticize one another on a really simple policy level, and so you get this real difficulty, not just to build the coalition to get the votes that you need, but a difficulty in actually producing good policy. So it's a multivariate problem. There are electoral issues, there are policy issues, There are, issues of political will, I guess, because there's this whole other agenda out there that has nothing to do with legislation that is being moved in very slow fashion. So that's kind of the very cheery state of Democratic politics right now.
I just want to dig into that sort of like that problem of having that sort of laundry list, because I remember when when the House voted, I guess it was following 2018 on the House. I feel like there was a couple of bills that were big laundry list, messaging bills that were massive failures in terms of the messaging, because there was like 43 messages being sent at the same time, and none of them stuck with people. Are we seeing legislation like that, right? Where you have, and we had talked at one point as like a sort of, I guess, as maybe as as a retreat position, being okay, instead of doing 30 things for 18 months, I'm just pulling out numbers, 30 things for 18 months and hope that they'll get renewed. How about doing 5 things that are permanent, essentially? I mean, that type of dynamic. Do we see that the former piece of legislation as a function of the House leadership essentially saying, how do I placate the various fiefdoms that exist within Congress, within the Democratic caucus? So I need the chair of the Energy Committee, the chair of the Health and Human Services Committee. I need all these chairs to maintain my power as leader in the House and my party discipline. So I've got to give them all a little something in this bill that goes forward. And then what happens is we can't sell it to the American public because there are 43 messages in it.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are a few things going on. And before anyone throws their computer into the wall, this is actually a hopeful piece that we're actually talking about.
I
here.
want to start with exactly. Yes,
yeah, we're starting with the misery, but there actually is a silver lining here. So bear with us. But I think there are a few things going on. One is what you just talked about: the need to placate all factions of the party and all power centers of the party. So you dole out these pieces to each committee chair. The other thing is something that happens outside of Congress, and this is where a lot of policy generation happens. Not a lot of policy generation happens inside Congress, but outside Congress, there are these groups that form what I understand are called tables, where they bring all these stakeholders together at one table and throw together all the best ideas for a particular very broad topic. And then all those ideas get smushed into the bill and then handed over as these are our priorities that we want to see in a bill. I mean, the For the People Act is the result of exactly that process. And it was hard to explain because there were 50 things in it. The third dynamic here, and this is very specific to something like Build Back Better, is that you have a budget reconciliation process that only allows one bill a year to go through with 50 Democratic votes. And otherwise, you're trying to argue with Republicans that this is in their interest. And it's very difficult to get buy-in, particularly on major kind of, the kinds of items that people want to see from the Republican Party. So then you end up having, by necessity, to stuff things into one bill because that's the only bill leaving the station. So, everybody's trying to get a ticket on that train. And so that creates this messaging issue. It also creates, just suboptimal policy. I mean, once you throw all these things together, then you have budgetary constraints because the way that budget reconciliation works, it has to be revenue neutral outside a 10-year window. And that ends up creating this, what Manchin, I guess, is called gimmickry, where you have the bill have a particular program go for 6 years or 3 years or 2 years because you want to have it sunset before it goes outside that budget window. There are all sorts of complications that go into a process where you can only pass one big bill a year. And obviously ending the filibuster would do away with that. But the same person that's carping about the compromises that have to be made under budget reconciliation is the guy who won't sign off on ending the filibuster, and that's Joe Manchin. So, there are just a host of problems here, from the way that policy ideas are generated all the way to the way that they have to be enacted under the current system.
Okay, so that's the bad news. But the good news is that you saw there were, in some respects, some unintended consequences that came out of the big COVID relief bill, the American Rescue Plan. $1.9 trillion passed in what I think it was March of 2020. Well,
I mean, they're intended and unintended.
Right.
So the intended part is that the reason that we passed a big bill in March of 2021 was in many ways because there was an attempt to rectify the mistakes of the past. So the 2009 stimulus comes out, it's underweight, it's not big enough to make a serious change in the curve on unemployment. And it creates a very long jobless recovery that saps away at Democratic majorities because there's this high unemployment through 2010, through even 2012. And Democrats were determined not to do that again. They're like, if we're going to err, we're going to err on the side of being too big this time rather than being too small. So they put together this $1.9 trillion bill that is designed to restore the level of unemployment that we had pre-pandemic in rapid succession. And let's say that it was wildly successful on that front. That the one thing that bill has done has dropped unemployment from, I believe it was at 6.5% at the beginning of the Biden presidency to where it is today, which is 3.6%, actually lower, I believe, than it was in 2019. It's a remarkable achievement, and a lot of it can be chalked up to the relief, the help with purchasing power, all of the various things that were done with the American Rescue Plan. So that was intended. Like, it was very explicit. In fact, there's reporting from Jonathan Martin's book, and I'm forgetting who the co-author is on that, Alex Burns, I think, that Obama himself was very upset that he was being used as the what not to do model in that scenario. It was very explicit. I mean, Schumer and Biden, they were saying, we're not going to do that again.
Yes.
We've learned our lesson. We're not going to do that again. So this had the effect of improving the unemployment picture. If you talk to people like Larry Summers, they say it also had the effect of raising inflation. I actually don't think that's true. And we wrote a very long series of articles about how the supply chain is a much bigger factor than an overheating economy in the inflation picture. But
if I remember correctly, he also tweeted at you saying, "Why are you spending so much time talking about me when I want everybody else to be talking about me?" Essentially.
He did. Indeed, he did. And I've never heard from him again, sadly. But the other consequence of this is the consequence that you normally see in a tight labor market. And that has manifested itself in the highest quit rate in the history of the record keeping for this going back 50 years. So we have 4 million plus people quitting every month, quitting their jobs, moving on to a better job, better position. But even more so, you see it in the breakthroughs that we've seen in the labor movement, which I really think are transformational. And I'm talking about the 28 Starbucks facilities so far that have been organized and have won their union election, with hundreds more on the way. I'm talking about the Amazon Labor Union's victory in Staten Island, with another warehouse on Staten Island going through the election process right now, and about 50 other Amazon warehouses contacting the Amazon Labor Union saying, how can we organize our own workplaces? And that's not where it ends. We have the Apple store in Grand Central Station that has also sought a union election. And there are more examples of this. This is a breakthrough of the labor movement into places that it has not historically been: restaurant, retail, and in the case of, and Amazon's kind of a sui generis case, but it's a warehouse sector where particularly you have, the second largest employer in the United States, and a large group of workers engaging in manual labor who are extremely diverse. So that is, I think, also a function of the American Rescue Plan and its goal of very tight labor markets. And I think that if you really step back and think about the potential, that's only potential right now. We don't even have a first contract for many of these groups, but the potential of 100,000 or 200,000 Starbucks workers organized, the potential of 500,000, 600,000 Amazon workers organized, will have a serious political valence in the years to come. That's your
argument, and I want to talk about the political valence in a second. But is there something qualitatively different about these workers, as opposed to, we had a couple of years ago the Red State Rebellion, where we had teachers, non-unionized teachers in many instances, striking, and a lot of teacher strikes. We have
that was also a time of low labor of tight labor markets, by the way. That was 2018, 2019, when the unemployment rate was pretty low. I mean, that was a sector that was largely organized, but some of the states that were at issue did not have unionized teaching workforce. But that was largely a workforce that was, if you look over the aggregate of the entire country, 80% unionized, right, 70% unionized. We're talking about sectors that are 0% unionized, that are moving extremely rapidly toward unionization. And if you think about the type of individual that is working at a Starbucks and how replicable that is to other firms in retail and restaurant, I think you're talking about a population of millions and millions of workers. We have a service-oriented economy, and the largest groups of workers that are at this moment, although it's changing, locked out of the collective bargaining system is the service sector.
Right.
And so, I mean, Amazon in some ways reflects that as well, right? I mean, they've just moved the retail into the warehouse. They're essentially retail workers that are working in the warehouse to send out your package, much in the way that someone working at Rite Aid, rings up your sale. But it is a different sector, and I think that's even more important because I mean, the other thing about Starbucks and Amazon is they're all over the country. And in the case of Amazon, they have to be all over the country because they promise 1 day or 2 day shipping to everybody in the United States. And it's physically impossible for them to do that without siting these warehouses close in some respect to every potential customer in the country. they can't just shut down a warehouse the way that Walmart, for example, did when there was a meat cutting operation in, I believe, Quebec that organized, and they just shut it down. And they could do that because Walmart wasn't promising everyone in Quebec that they could get their meat at Walmart. But Amazon actually is promising that. They're promising that anybody who logs on to Amazon and has a Prime membership can get anything that they click on at that site within 24 to 48 hours. And it's impossible to do that if you're shutting down warehouses if they organize. So
I guess
they're in a pretty compromised position.
Similarly with Starbucks, I mean, you can close a Starbucks in, I don't know, in downtown Worcester, but the fact of the matter is those people working there are similarly situated to the people in in Newton or in in Iowa, where it doesn't matter where it is. There's you cannot contain the contagion from the perspective
and what is the function of this? Like, why are these workplaces organizing now? I mean, part of it is that they've figured out a model that really works. In the case of Amazon, organizing inside the factory with an independent union process.
That's also, we should also just say, Ryan Grimm had a good piece the other day, the
NLRB's decision, yes,
made it allowed that you could actually organize
without
within
question.
the workplace there.
And that's definitely a factor. But also, I would have to say that the fact that workers know that if they get fired or if the Starbucks shuts down because they organize, they could walk across the street and get another job because there are that many job openings.
Right.
It instills a measure of courage that allows you to engage in the very hard work of organizing. And historically, there is a correlation between tight labor markets and more labor organizing.
I feel like we're seeing that dynamic in nursing. There's been a fairly decent number of nursing strikes that have happened across the country because there is such an incredible demand right now for healthcare workers.
Right. So I mean, to sort of step out from that, having established that, the American Rescue Plan and the tight labor markets it helped create are a function in the flourishing, at least at a nascent level of the labor movement right now. What does that mean for politics? What does it mean that there might be 1 million or a couple million more new young people, largely young people, who are organized and interested in furthering this? The United States is kind of an outlier in the fact that it hasn't had a labor-led political party in history. There are certainly alliances between the labor movement and the Democratic Party historically, but they're pretty loose. There are, there's a reason that you hear the Labor Party, not just in Britain, but in many countries in the industrialized world, and they are labor-led parties. And if you are one that believes that the current state of the Democratic Party is in an impossible situation where it's out of touch, it is speaking to a narrower and narrower base, then the rise of a new force in politics that either will create its own party or potentially help take over the Democratic Party is exactly the kind of transformation that you would hope to see. And so I can't help but think that this is a really positive development overall. And it's kind of, Democrats certainly got a lot of things wrong over the last 2 years, but they got this one thing right. And this one thing might be able to realign politics in some way, such that this hype about Republicans, becoming a working class party would be, would ring a little hollow.
Right. I mean, the fact of the matter is, for all the, to the extent that there were failures of any Democratic politicians coming out in the context of the Amazon or organizing, they showed up. Maybe they showed up late, but they showed up at one point. We were not seeing, New York State Republicans show up at Staten Island in support of these people. I mean, there's there's a lot of Democrats that we wouldn't see show up there either. But to the extent that there are any politicians showing up, so what would be? So if your argument is that, and I it seems pretty sound to me that this is going to have an impact on our politics, because the idea is that there's no reason to think that it ends in Staten Island. There's no reason to think that it ends with the first, 30 or so Starbucks in the country. There's every reason to believe that this is going to continue. What are the benchmarks that we should be looking at, A, and B, what are the obstacles? Because if we do see, let's say, the Fed starting to tighten the monetary supply as a way of like, well, I mean, Alan Greenspan, I've looked for this. I know for a fact, though, he said it at a Senate hearing, part of his job is to maintain a certain amount of worker insecurity because worker security ends up leading to these type of things. And so, and I imagine the Fed still has, certainly has that that mandate on some level, theoretically, or at least, somewhat submerged. So what happens if they start raising the interest rates and we start to the labor market starting to slack?
Well, let me take that second, and we'll start with sort of what the benchmarks are. But here's one point that I want to make. Right now, one of the reasons that we think that Democrats are kind of in a really difficult position is that they are split in their loyalties, they're in their orientation. They, in order to win the kind of support that they think they need to build a coalition, they need to, hit up corporations for a lot of campaign donations. And the policy apparatus is largely driven by, nonprofits and think tanks that are funded by foundations that are essentially rich people. And having a foundation-led kind of policy orientation is not one that's necessarily going to get you to a place where you do the kinds of things necessary for working people that don't make the same people funding your apparatus uncomfortable. So I think there's value in a labor-led, working people-led, rather than a kind of organization-led politics that we see right now, where the organization's popular constituency is a little hard to find. So that's what I think is the real value here, is that, and that's a throwback, right? That's a throwback to the New Deal era, where it was really led through a labor coalition, the kind of structures of New Deal liberalism. So that's
and also you didn't have. Frankly, you didn't. I mean, I think there's some relevance too to the fact that the ALU is an independent new union, that there is not necessarily sort of like the problems that come with institutions that have ossified. And
I'm not saying that the ALU will or should be, hacks for the Democratic Party. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that much like the civil rights movement became an independent force within our politics and moved the party that was most receptive to it in its direction, that is the kind of impact that this independent labor movement could have.
All right, let's talk about the Empire Striking Back here.
So yes, Yeah, I mean, I think that's a serious concern, and it's why we should be informed about it now of the ulterior or maybe primary goal of what we're seeing right now, which is this call for more and more rate hikes, 50 basis points, 75 basis points, get interest rates up to break the back of inflation. And, I have questioned in the past exactly what inflation would do to, for example, reduce the backlog of ships now in the Shanghai harbor,
Right.
or to stop the spread of COVID. Like there are things that interest rates can do, and there are things interest rates can't do. And right now, in my view, inflation is being driven by factors that rising interest rates cannot affect.
And we can see this at the very least. The easiest way to see this is that inflation is happening across the globe, regardless of what the fiscal responses have been to COVID. And we're going to see, and we can.
I mean,
we can
factories in Shanghai have been shut for almost 4 weeks now, and this is one of the largest producing regions of the entire world, and that we're going to have shortages. Like, other factories are going to have to be shut down because the components aren't being made in Shanghai, in that region. The finished goods aren't being made in that region, and they're going to, to the extent they're basic necessities, there are going to be shortages there. And it's going to raise prices. And there's nothing that the Fed can do about that.
So talk about what happens when the Fed does raise interest rates.
But the secondary motive, yes, is when the Fed raises interest rates.
Will you just talk about the mechanics of that, though? Will you just walk
when the Fed raises interest rates, then suddenly it becomes harder for businesses to finance investment. And if it becomes harder for businesses to finance investment, then they're not going to grow their factories. They're not going to increase. Hold on a second. Sorry. They're not going to increase the capacity of their production. If they're not going to do those capital expenditures, they're likely to not be able to employ more people. And to the extent that this all leads to a reduction in consumer spending because there are fewer people on the job, then that has its own kind of whipsaw effect as well. And so the goal is to make the cost of employing people higher in the hopes that you will, this is really what they're talking about, in the hopes that more people will be thrown out of work. And if more people are thrown out of work, then they'll have less money to consume goods. And if they have less money to consume goods, then demand will fall and come in line with supply more, and that will lower inflation. I mean, that's the bank shot that they're looking for. And that bank shot is necessarily a bank shot that is supposed to loosen labor markets.
And it's also predicated on the idea that the inflation is a function of people having too much money, as opposed to supply being inhibited because of outside factors, i.e. COVID and supply chains, et cetera, et cetera.
That's right. So they are attempting a demand solution to a supply problem. And that demand solution will have effects on employment. Now, what I would say is that we're now already kind of down the road on these labor wins. And everyone who is situated at a Starbucks, at an Amazon, has seen a model for this to be able to work. So yes, it is going to be harder if more people are thrown off the job, and there's a larger reserve army of the unemployed, potential scabs, et cetera. But it may be a little too late. The genie might be out of the bottle. So I'm not convinced that that's just sort of the death knell of this movement, but it will absolutely make it harder if the Fed continues with this very aggressive monetary tightening.
Well, I mean, hope springs eternal, I guess. But I mean, it certainly feels like the genie is out of the bottle. And I think it's, a lot of times this is about expectations that get developed amongst people, and also being inspired and realizing like, oh, this is possible. People, they won in Staten Island. There's no reason why we can't win in, I don't know, Delaware, or, I'm just working my way west, I guess, and in Kentucky and Colorado and out to California, whatever, and Nebraska. People get the idea. All right. Let me just quickly touch on this one thing too about, you wrote a piece today about inflation impacting the news. And it also in some ways, ties into to Twitter on some level too, because we could be seeing, $46 billion or whatever it is. That's a lot of money to guys like you and I. And and if I was to, there's only so much fun you can get out of buying a vanity project, like until things turn MySpacey on it. And we could, who knows? Elon Musk may have this idea of like, I'm going to start charging for this or whatever it is. But talk about the impact. The inflation is real insofar as the way it affects consumers right now. And we're heading into an austerity, when you raise the price of money, it's going to create sort of a more austerity in terms of this environment. So people are going to have less money or less buying power. There's Netflix has run into this problem where subscribers are starting to drop off. And really, part of their problem too is they also ran out of subscribers to sign up. They blew it in India, apparently, was their big story. I think Amazon Prime went in there and undercut them. But
that's part of it. But I think the larger question here is, what does an inflation constrained environment do to subscription-based services? And when I'm talking about those, I'm not just talking about Netflix and Amazon and very large corporations, but I'm talking about, frankly, you and me. I'm talking about the fact that the great majority of news outlets, large and small, from the New York Times to a Substack, are predicated on gathering monthly subscriptions from readers and viewers in your case. And when you're in a budget constrained environment, what is going to drop out? What are you going to drop out of your budget? Well, I got to have food, I got to have shelter, I got to have, some other basic necessities. Yeah, do I really need the Majority Report? Like, could I mean, that's obviously, way up there. It takes a while before you get to there, but do I really need this subscription service that I pay $6 a month for? And I'm trying to just hold on here, and I'm trying to make sure that my standard of living is not degraded completely, but I might have to cut out a few things. And it seems to me that subscriptions are one of the big things that you're going to see some degradation on. And it's a problem that this has become a primary revenue source. Subscriptions have always been part of newspapers and magazines and what have you, even things like HBO. But in this day and age, it is the primary way in which people support themselves. Ads are funneled into Google and Facebook, and they have kind of a duopoly there, and you get less out of them if you're a news organization. Classified ads are over at Craigslist. And go down the line of what the revenue sources are. And more, there is a greater reliance on subscriptions as the model for journalism. And, I see this as a double-edged kind of situation. There was always a problem to me with the paywall as a gatekeeping function on information, so that segregated people into kind of an information class system where if you had enough money, you could get the real news. You could get the information that's really going on from the really high priced operations like Bloomberg and Politico Pro and some of these other tip sheets that are very, very expensive. If in the middle ground, if you had enough money to get a slightly smaller subscription, you could get New York Times information, Washington Post, et cetera. And if you had no ability to afford any of that, then you were kind of hoping to get bits and pieces from places like Twitter and Facebook, and where you're susceptible to a lot of noise to reach that actual piece of information. So in my view, the paywall was kind of as big, if not a bigger problem than disinformation with respect to the media. And now you bring in the second part of this, which is that if you rely so much on the paywall, then you're more susceptible and more driven by spikes in the economy itself. That when it goes up, then you're doing well with your paywall and you're getting a lot of subscribers. And when things turn down, you're going to do really bad because it's not I can buy a paper today or tomorrow like it's 75 cents or 25 cents back in the day. It's I don't want to do this monthly subscription anymore. And I'm going to give up that piece of information. And if enough people do that, it has a real effect on the business.
And I would imagine it also exacerbates that problem of the stuff that gets behind the paywall has to be increasingly, you have to move more and more of your value behind the paywall to convince
Absolutely.
people to buy it.
Think about how mad people are about the fact that Mitch McConnell, the day after the January 6th riot, said this was exhilarating because now Trump is exposed and shown for the buffoon he is. And we didn't hear about that for 16 months. And that's because it was put into a book, right? It was a form of a paywall. It was put into a book. So they segregated that information. That's done on a daily basis with these various gatekeepers that are set up to segregate information. And yes, there is an effect if you rely more and more on the paywall for your business to segregate more and more of that information. And I think it's dangerous. But more dangerous is that these things close. Because if suddenly you don't have enough money to sustain your business model, because in an inflation-strapped environment, everyone's dropping their subscriptions, then that's the bigger problem.
People have to read the piece to find out what your solutions are, but they are.
I don't know that I have any.
Well, that was, but it's not behind the paywall. Not behind the paywall. The solutions are not behind.
First of all, the prospects are never behind a paywall. Second of all, the solutions we know are, and we've heard about them for a long time, whether it's public funding or because, the fourth estate is a critical part of democracy, or, breaking up the Google, Facebook ad duopoly so you can generate revenue that way. There are a lot of options for how to restore and revitalize news. They haven't been taken. And for that reason, I think we're going to be uniquely sensitive to pretty wild swings right now. And, maybe that spurs taking up some of these solutions, and maybe it doesn't.
David Dayen, executive editor of the non-paywalled American Prospect. You will notice every time you go over there, they put up there's very often a, what do you call it? A splash page?
That would be a pop-up. Yeah, that you can click off.
It explicitly says this is not a paywall when you see that pop-up.
It does.
And much appreciated. Always a pleasure, David Dayen. Thank you so much. We will put a link to those pieces at majority.fm.
Thanks a lot.
All right, folks. Now we will head into the paywall version of our program, which is admittedly at times a little leaky. We've actually been talking about for, well, I guess for about 5 years, splitting it up. We may start to do that a little bit because of exactly that dynamic that David was talking about. So I think tomorrow we're going to be even experimenting with setting up at least a second stream for the fun half. More on that information later. But just a reminder, it is your support that keeps this program going. You can become a member at jointhemajorityreport.com. And when you do, you get the free half, free of commercials. You also get the fun half. And a reminder, we have always had the policy here that if you do not have the resources to get the fun half, but you want it, you can email us at majorityreporters@gmail.com, put in the subject line fun half or something like that, or can I get the fun half? And we will work it out for you. So join the majorityReport.com. Also, don't forget, MajorityLive.com. If you want tickets to our Boston show, we are only 3 weeks out, ladies and gentlemen. Less. It's going to be an amazing show. I guarantee you, if you don't catch it, you're going to be bummed. So if you're anywhere in the locale of the Wilbur Theater on May 15th at 2 p.m., be there. Will be a freaking co-op.
I'll be in a Celtics hat after the triumphant victory over the.
Whoa,
Nets,
big
so
time!
I'm looking to make a purchase soon.
Big man.
I'll be wearing a Jets hat.
Good luck. Good luck, dude. Maybe you can get away with that in May. Also, don't forget the Discord, and also at majoritydiscord.com, the AM Quickie, ladies and gentlemen, amquickie.com. Get an email in your email box every morning. Top political stories of the day from the perspective of people on the left. Matt, what's happening in the Matt Leckian media universe?
Yeah, this weekend, Brian Box Brown, we talked about weed policy and monopolies and Curaleaf stealing wages. On Wednesday, Luke Savage to talk about his book, The Dead Center, and the sort of zombie centrism that we're forced to live with. So that's tomorrow night, patreon.com/leftreckoning.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's bring to the program Nomi Konst. Nomi, long time no see.
Get like music rolling in now? Uh-oh. There we go.
There you go.
That's my song?
I don't know.
I think you got to think about that a little bit more. There we go. Love it. What's up? How?
Some type of like crash symbol on that, or at the end?
And now we're turning into a 1960s vaudeville show. That's the show now. No.
60s? 50s.
I don't know what 50s. I'm not your age. You were around back then, okay?
Yeah. I was going to vaudeville shows in the 60s.
Sam does not age. Little known secret.
What's happening on your show, Nomi?
So we have a really exciting week on our show.
Where are you now?
I am at my parents' place.
Okay.
We had Greek Orthodox Easter this weekend, so we did some family stuff, and you got to do that while you can. So
no, I understand.
So I'm on a couch. That's where I am.
All right.
But luckily we have lights here, which is great. So I'm really excited about this because I have been obsessed with these guys since they started their podcast, and it's picking up steam. But if you guys know about the Conspirituality podcast, we have Matthew Remski on tomorrow. This is a podcast dedicated to dissecting why a lot of the spiritual movement is moving to Trump, and like it's based on sort of like get rich quick and like mind over matter stuff. But he is somebody who comes from the yoga movement and mindfulness movement, and yet is a leftist who really wants to kind of break through a lot of the what we think. I mean, I think a lot of people, Alex Ebert from Edward Sharp and the Magnetic Zeros has been doing a lot of work on this. Like there's just this pipeline to radicalism, which starts, I think, in a really wholesome empathetic place, but ends up in this like, let's storm the Capitol place with the shaman, the
right.
January 6th shaman. So I'm really excited about that interview. That's tomorrow on our show at 8 p.m. And we also have David Dole on and Benjamin Dixon. So it's a pretty fun show. And then on Friday at 8 p.m., she's on a lot, but this time she's on to talk about her new book, Fight Like Hell. Kim Kelly, who is an incredible labor reporter. If you don't follow her already, and if you haven't had her on the show for her book, you really should, because she's just such a badass. She's like hardcore.
Well, we do have
amazing.
a book.
Yay,
We're
good.
ironing out the details, but we're booking her.
We're ironing out
Wonderful.
the details.
She's incredible. So very excited about that too.
Great. All right. Well, we're going to, you're going to join us in the fun half today.
Maybe.
We're going to take a quick break and see everybody in the fun half.
3 months from now, 6 months from now, 9 months from now. And I don't think it's going to be the same as it looks like in 6 months from now. And I don't know if it's necessarily going to be better 6 months from now than it is 3 months from now. But I think around 18 months out, we're going to look back and go like, wow. What? What is that going on? It's nuts. Wait a second. Hold on for a second. Emma, welcome to the program.
Hey.
Matt.
New.
What is up, everyone?
Nomiki.
You did it.
Let's go, Brandon.
Let's go, Brandon.
Bradley, you want to say hello?
Sorry to disappoint everyone. I'm just a random guy.
It's all the boys today.
Fundamentally false.
No, I'm sorry. Women's.
Stop talking for a second and let me finish.
Where is this coming from, dude?
But dude, you want to smoke this 7A?
Yes.
Hi, me? Is this?
Yes.
Is this me?
Is it me?
It is you.
Is this me? Hello? Is this me?
I think it is you. Who is you? No sound. Every single freaking day. What's on your mind?
Sports. We can discuss free markets and we can discuss capitalism.
I'm going to go throw up.
Libertarians.
They're so stupid, though.
Common sense says, of course.
Gobbledygook.
We fucking nailed him.
So what's 79 plus 21?
Challenge Matt.
I'm positively quivering. I believe 96, I want to say.
857-210-35 501 1 half 3 8s
9/11, for instance.
$3,400, $1,900.
654 $3 trillion sold. It's a zero-sum game.
Actually, you're making me think less of it.
But let me say this. Poop.
Call it satire. Sam goes with satire.
On top of it all, my favorite part about you is just like every day, all day, like everything you do.
Without a doubt. Hey, buddy, we see you. All right, folks.
It's just the week being weeded out, obviously.
Yeah, sun's out, guns out. I don't know.
But you should know.
People just don't like to entertain ideas anymore.
I have a question. Who cares?
Our chat is enabled, folks.
I love it.
I do love that.
Look, gotta jump. Gotta be quick. I gotta jump.
I'm losing it, bro.
2 o'clock. We're already late, and the guy's being a dick. So screw him. Sent to a gulag?
Outrageous.
Like, what is wrong with you?
Love you, bye.
Love you. Bye-bye. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. It is the fun half on the program. You can IM us by going to majorityapp.com, getting the app, and IMing us through the app. You can also, well, I don't know if we're going to take calls yet. We might. But let's just start with this IM. It's a fine time
I am Sam, you humongous dick with a micro penis. Holy hell, do you look genuinely awful? You look like a scarecrow stuffed with dog shit. Are you sure you still don't have COVID? Like, are you sure you don't have every strain at the same time? Your whole vibe is somewhere in the ballpark of a syphilitic Zach Braff if he was allergic to bees and just got stung by 80 bees. Anyways, I love the show and welcome back. Here's to you taking another bite of the MR apple. That is very sweet. Who's Zach Braff?
The guy from Scrubs.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. He's had a wonderful career. Let's I don't know. Should we talk
you still
about
have a cough, man?
Yeah, no, I still yeah.
Wow.
This is my
How
first day
long does
back.
it? This is it? Congratulations. I thought it was
Thank you
yesterday.
very much. Yeah, this is my first day back on the show.
So like how long did it was it tell me about the experience, because this is like the next version iteration of COVID. Is it
I a week ago, 2 weeks ago Friday, past Friday, I got late at night, I started to feel like I was getting like a bronchial cough, which I hadn't had since my days as a smoker. By Saturday morning at 5 a.m., I woke up feeling like a sort of a burning in my chest. I went to go, I tested myself because I had the kids. And that day, Mila was actually performing at Carnegie Hall in a chorus. And,
oh my God. That's so cool. Congrats.
And I tested negative. I did not feel well the entire day. By mid-afternoon, I was like, I can't go tonight. Like, and I'm still testing negative, but I don't feel well, and I shouldn't go, into that place, for their sake, and I didn't think I could do it for mine as I got worse. I got a PCR test, cost like $140. They did not take my insurance. I got it's like a 6 to 8 turnaround, 6 to 8 hour turnaround. But I figured out if you go at like 3:30, they close at 5. And so they told me within an hour. Still negative. That night felt worse. Sunday morning, got to go coach a baseball game. I rapid test in the morning, negative again. And so I go to the game. I'm outdoors, fortunately, but I also sort of like, I go coach first base so that I'm not really near anybody. And I go home. I'm exhausted. I stay in bed all day. Fortunately, was able to have my ex-wife take the kids at that point. Tested Monday morning, and I was positive. And
what?
That Sunday night, I had the worst Monday nights into Tuesday. I had the worst sore throat of my entire life. Fever hitting 102 at some points until I took like Advil to bring it down to 101. That lasted until like Thursday or Friday. My fever ended around Wednesday, I think. Thursday and Friday, I started to feel a little bit better. But then it was just very slow. And then for the next week, I was just exhausted all the time. Sore throat was more or less gone, but you can see here, I'm still congested. I still have a little bit of a cough. So that's basically it.
So when did you get your last booster?
I got the second booster, I think a week before I contracted COVID.
No.
Yeah. So that booster, I don't think it kicked in.
That's crazy.
And in fact, it may have enhanced the problem. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't want to speculate on that either too much, but I wonder if there is something to be said for being a little bit cautious after you've gotten a vaccine dose, because I caught it about a week after when I was still waiting for the next one to activate.
Yep.
Wow.
I think I had the exact wrong mental response, to be honest with you, of getting that. I think I should have probably waited another week. And I'm exhausted now. Like, I mean, right now I feel okay in this very moment. But when I got to the studio today, after walking for the first time in 2 weeks, I just immediately came in and I was just like, I need to clear off the couch because I need to take a nap now.
Oh my God.
Yep. So I think there's another like 4 or 5 weeks before you come back from this. And I know of 2 or 3 other guys, actually, all guys, who had a very similar experience of mine. They tested positive a couple of days into symptoms. They had the worst sore throat of their lives, and they tested. I didn't test negative until this morning.
So you didn't make a decision if you were going to come in until but you're just not.
Everybody I've talked to said that it's probably dead virus that I was shedding.
Yeah.
So that I was probably, more or less safe. But, I think, Emma took the day off today just because she had been working the past couple of weeks straight.
Yeah.
If because Emma is the only one in the office who hasn't gotten it yet. And so that's sort of, that also factored into to the thing. So there it is.
It's bizarre too, because like there are all these articles now, like, why are you not? I mean, I haven't had it, knock on wood. There's been a couple of situations where I thought I did, but as far as I know, at least, as far as the tests have revealed, I haven't. But same thing with Emma. I'm sure it's bizarre. Like, how at this point, like, what is it they're doing there's some research and some writing on, I think the New York Times did something about like, well, what does it mean if you don't get it? And
what
can we learn from?
I can tell you what it meant for me was that I had not gone into a restaurant with my mask off until really the past couple of months. And I probably went into 3, maybe 4 restaurants, 2 in the week after I got the 4th booster, or the 4th, my second booster. And I think I just got overly confident.
Yeah.
And that's it. I mean, I suspect I got it in the restaurant because I can't really quite figure out where else I would have gotten it. I mean, I took the subway a little bit more often than I would, but I got my mask on in the subway. So, but there it is. All right, let's go to let's play some clips here. There is the Supreme Court, I think yesterday they heard the oral arguments of a high school coach who following the football games started praying in the field. And over a period of time, students started to join him, other players, other people, and it was all on school time, right? And the school said, we can't have you doing this anymore because you're doing this as the coach. You're not doing this. It's not a random thing. It's not an ecumenical prayer. It is a prayer to Jesus. And there is reason to believe that if you are on the football team and you're not going out and praying to Jesus, that you're going to start to get stigmatized on the team. And we cannot, as a public school, as an extension of the government, endorse a religion. This is
what state was this?
This is this was in Washington State.
Oh.
And so he was fired. And this was
because he refused, or was he warned?
He was refused to stop this week, this prayer after every game. And prayer to Jesus, it's not an ecumenical prayer, just we should say. And he was fired. This is almost, I think, in 2015, he was fired. And he's been pursuing this case. It's at the Supreme Court. Here is Fox's Kennedy. Now, I remember back when she was a libertarian.
Yeah, I do. And, a minute ago.
And she's on with Kayleigh McEnany. And of course, all roads, you should know, I believe, lead to this.
Right to religious speech.
Yes, and the superintendent has to prove that he was ostracizing players and, not favoring them if they didn't participate. So far, what I have seen, they have not proven that, this will be a very important case for religious liberty, but also maybe a great time in our country's history where we rethink whether or not we have public schools. Maybe we should not have the government involved in education at all, so parents and teachers and administrators can make those decisions themselves instead of having the government impose it on them, because it is the public school aspect of this that is creating the legal challenge.
And what do we do with the people who can't afford private? Like, what does that look like? Because each state allots some money, so they would get that money, I would assume. Isn't that what Florida wanted to do?
Vouchers. That's what Florida
Yeah,
did.
that's what Florida wanted to do.
Yeah, we could entirely rethink. Okay, I'll tell you why I say that. It's because the two most powerful teachers unions in the country are opposed to Coach Kennedy. They are using their heft and their influence to make sure that he loses this case.
Emily, you've dealt with the ninth.
Hold on. I'm sorry. Did I miss? Can we rewind that part to the part where she addresses what do you do? Because the vouchers, let's be clear here. The vouchers will create a multi-tiered system.
Yes.
Where only the people who get the $2,000. Now, look around, see the private schools around you. Which one of those costs $2,000?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you can find a parochial school that is subsidized by the church that
AKA
costs $2,000 a year. But for the most part, no. And so what you will have are basically detention facilities that will be set up for everybody who's not using that voucher to subsidize going to a 10 or 15 or an 8 or $25,000 or $30,000 a year private school. That's basically the world in which they're looking for.
You know what I also love about this? On one hand, they don't want anybody, they want to live in a tax-free state. But on the other hand, they want to have all of their private even if it's a parochial school, it is ultimately funded by the state. It is funded by tax dollars.
This is
the dilemma.
People can go. There was an interview done years and years ago with Trump's former education secretary, Betsy DeVos, and her husband, who said explicitly, I don't have a problem with public education. We have a problem with public schools. So they want public education insofar as they want this tax money to be taken in by the government and then redistributed for this very reason. They want it to go to parochial schools. They want it to go to religious schools. And if some goes to some secular private schools, all well and good. But this is the agenda. And the idea that, this is the First Amendment. Now, if it is the case that they cannot prove that players on the team felt ostracized if they were not part of the prayer circle, then it is not a violation of the First Amendment. Then it is not an endorsement of religion. I find it really hard to believe.
Well, he wasn't praying to himself. It wasn't a personal thing. It was acting in a leadership role as a coach on the field in front of others. You have every right to pray to yourself. But I think what's happening with this case, with all the CRT stuff, with the school board recalls in California, with the trans don't say gay issues and the trans issues, this is all about what Kennedy said. She said the quiet part out loud, teachers unions. And it's not that they're it's a couple things. It's not just that they're anti-union. Who are the largest public sector workers in this country? Public school teachers. What is the largest group of donations going to the Democratic Party? Teachers union money. They want to jujitsu this and go after all these different aspects, go for religion, push for charter schools, and go after the union movement as well as a funding source of the Democratic Party. This is their goal. Their ultimate goal is to just eliminate and, of course, brainwash the next generation of conservatives in this country, of course.
And I'd love to see Kennedy. Didn't she start as an atheist on I can't remember exactly.
She's not an atheist. She's Greek Orthodox, actually. We've had these conversations with her, or Armenian Orthodox. I can't remember. She's Orthodox Western, Eastern Orthodox.
There you go. All right. Let's go. We're right here with Stephen Crowder. Steven Crowder, new father of twins. I know this because he used it as an excuse to avoid getting into a potential debate with me at one point. He pretended that his wife was having complications in their birth to avoid the potential that I would show up on a stream, and that ultimately didn't work out for him. But he has some thoughts about, and this is going to surprise people. He thinks that that children who have very little experience in the world just have a natural inclination to understand the idea of heterosexual love as opposed to homosexual love.
I will say this. When they say, well, look, does the curriculum ban people from discussing heterosexual marriage with children? No, it also doesn't ban discussing your personal relationships. It's just inappropriate. However, I would argue, yeah, it's more appropriate to discuss heterosexual relationships with children than same-sex relationships and marriage. Why? Because it doesn't require much of an explanation. Is this an argument that you really want to make? The vast majority of relationships since the beginning of time have been heterosexual relationships. That is, I dare say, normal, meaning the norm, meaning it is the most likely to occur. It's not that hard to explain to a child. Boy meets girl, boy falls in love with girl, boy and girl get married, have babies.
Pause it for 1 second. Pause it for 1 second. Understand he's talking about children whose experience, who are not aware of the history of the world unless they are taught it. And they are not aware of the idea that it is normal. Like there are, and this is going to come apparently as a massive surprise to this bigot, that there are situations where a mother, a single mother, has children. There are even situations where there are single fathers who have children. How do you explain this? It's not,
but not since the history of time, Sam. Just wait till he learns about the invention of marriage. That blow his mind.
Like how is it that kids understand that his wife? Well, I don't know exactly what their arrangement is, but I do know what the legality of is. How do the kids understand that his wife is not his chattel when from the history of the vast majority of the history of the world,
wait till he finds out about ancient Greece,
the property of the man? How do kids understand this? How do they understand this idea of like, what happens if the wife does not take the last name of the man? How do we explain this to the children?
Yeah, if the whole point is like avoiding confusing conversations, like what is it? What you're just creating a later conversation to be like, hey, you know that thing you said about how it's men and women all the time? Well, I'm seeing some things that go against
yeah,
that.
exactly.
And it's actually not quite as rare as you're like suggesting it is. So let's have a conversation about what the hell, how the hell I'm so confused right now.
My grandfather's name was Samuel Seder. I didn't know him. In the Jewish tradition is you get named after somebody who's dead. My grandmother, when she would receive correspondence, when she would address anybody outside of the home, her name was not Edith Pincus, which was her maiden name. Her name was not Edith Seder, which was her married name. Her name was Mrs. Samuel Seder. That is the way that my grandmother would talk to anybody outside of the home. Hello, bank. This is Mrs. Samuel Seder. I get a piece of mail, Mrs. Samuel Seder. I am old, but I am not that old. But that is the way that it was for the history of time.
Modern marriage. Because
certainly.
Wait until he learns about his ancient Greek history. It might blow his mind.
The ease in which you can say,
this is unreal.
Boy likes girl, girl likes boy, they get married, have children when they grow older, is also boy likes boy, girl likes girl, they get married, and they can have children. That's how difficult it is. And the kids go, you ready for this? Okay. Can I have a cookie? You know,
But Sam, you don't want to give them choices. See, if you give them more choices, it's just going to create more chaos in their life and make it difficult. And then, who's going to be the teacher? A teacher can't be a man or a woman. Like roles. People have to be defined in their roles. You have to make it easier for these kids because it's just too much at once.
I also wonder if his kids don't go, Daddy, why are you carrying a handgun? Why do you have a gun? Are we in danger?
That makes sense too.
All right, go continue.
Oh God, here he goes.
1.5% who are two dudes. Look, it's more confusing because there's more explanation. For the same reason you probably wouldn't teach kids about child brides or arranged marriages. And by the way, I'm not saying that arranged marriages are necessarily morally wrong. I don't like them. But my point is, of course, you wouldn't need to. People act as though there's an equivalency.
Pause it. So he just equated, just want to be clear, gay relationships with child brides, with pedophilia. Do you see how he snuck that in there? Do you see how he snuck
but it's
that in
only 1.5%. That's it, Sam. 1.5% of the population is gay, and they're all pedophiles.
But wait, I want to be like, he is equating pedophilia. How do you explain pedophilia to a child? It's just as difficult as explaining two adults getting married. Go back a little bit more.
Dudes, look, it's more confusing because there's more explanation. For the same reason you probably wouldn't teach kids about child brides or arranged marriages. And by the way, I'm not saying that arranged marriages are necessarily morally wrong. I don't like them. But my point is, of course, you wouldn't need to. People act as though there's an equivalency. There's not. When something is far outside the realm of average.
The realm of average? What the hell does that mean? What is like? How do you explain you carry a gun on your YouTube show to your kids? Talk about being far out of the average.
I'm the realm of average with my two
his,
holsters on.
His whole reason why he's packing guns is to make it normalized. What? Well, I thought it's wrong to normalize things.
Not when something is far outside the realm of average.
The realm of average.
It requires more explaining. Why? Because the vast majority of kids there understand that men and women go together and can make babies.
I wonder what schools are for. Explaining things, maybe?
Yeah.
But I got news for you. I have two children. I have had to explain to them how babies get made. They do not know this on their own. They get around 6, they start to have some ideas, 5 or 6. But I got news for you. When my daughter was 5, she was also aware of someone having 2 mommies. And you know what? She was no more or less confused by that than the idea of how men and women make babies.
Yeah, I was significantly more confused by the revelation that Santa didn't exist after I defended the reality of his existence to everybody in first grade than I was the existence of gay people.
Continue.
Why? Because the vast majority of kids there understand that men and women go together and can make babies. So it's not as big of a deal to say my wife for a man or my husband for a woman as it is for a man to say my husband, because most kids are going to go, what was that?
Well, that's because Daddy, who has a gun, has told me, Daddy had a gun. It told me that's just like pedophilia. So I had to think twice about that. God, man, that guy is so desperate.
Yeah.
To espouse his heterosexual bona fides.
What is that about? That's what I want to know. Why are you so obsessed with showing how heterosexual you are?
It is unbelievable how this guy has made his entire career about essentially one form or another of homophobia, misogyny, and racism.
Yeah, he portrays himself as some sort of jokester or merry prankster, and he's just a nasty little bigot.
Yeah, exactly.
He's an insecure little snot.
He didn't say pedophilia isn't immoral. Talia from Tampa. He tried to sneak that in as just one of the things that are hard to explain.
Child brides, and then he went to arranged marriages.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But what I also don't understand is how can you be a gay man who has a child bride? It doesn't make sense to me. Based on his logic, if two men are together, then why would they want a child bride? Isn't a bride a woman? I'm really confused by his.
I guess yes. I
deep
mean,
logic.
again, you're trying to maintain. He is basically just saying pedophilia.
Yes.
Pedophilia is pedophilia, arranged marriages, and gay marriage are all of the same qualitative. There's no quality. Yes, unnormal things.
I would love to see you debate the Bible with him.
I will debate anything with him, and he will not. I've got so. Oh no! Oh no! It's Sam Seder. Who could have guessed? What should we?
Yeah, I was gonna say the Trump Piers Morgan. Either one is good.
Yeah, let's do this. I sort of like vaguely saw about this. I have no idea what's going on.
Because it was like advertised on the New York Post, like an action movie, basically. This interview where like Trump like supposedly walked out, but then Trump denied walking out. So like it's just it's a farce, basically.
Is it up yet?
There were clips today, so I think it has come out because it's mostly promotion for Piers Morgan Uncensored on Fox.
I was on that episode. I want to see it.
Oh, you were? All right, let's see.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Oh my God! Hold on for a second. Did put up the image of Trump here? Don't let it run yet. Just put that up.
Oh my God!
Did he have some type of accident? Did he like fall
in a tanning bed?
Or seasonal re-oranging
and just sweating also.
Oh my God. All right. Jesus.
The hair's even a little.
I don't know if I like this color template they're using on that Fox Nation, but go ahead.
This is vacation Trump.
Only a fool, and I guess you're a fool, only a fool would think that was a legitimate.
You think I'm a fool?
I do now, yeah.
Frank Sinatra said the best revenge is massive success. Isn't your best revenge, rather than talking constantly about the last
I don't
election,
talk constantly, but you brought it up.
You
I
do,
didn't.
you do.
You brought it
Come
up.
on, eat away.
Excuse me. You brought it up. I didn't. I don't talk about it very much.
Pause it for one
I do
second.
say it
Pause
was-
it for 1 second. Somebody mentioned this on Twitter, and I think this is worth watching. Most people who, and certainly presidents, who agree to these type of interviews, go back to that side shot. Do not allow for a camera shot of this, which is the I'm taking a dump shot. But Trump always has this happen, where it's like, this is the view of someone like sitting on the toilet.
Oh my God.
And usually what they'll do is like, no, we're only allowing like your wide shot to be angled on us. This is just a weird thing that he always seems to allow to have happen.
Because he always has to be in the shot. Like he can't ever not be on camera.
No. The other way you do the two shot would be to put the camera sort of closer to Piers Morgan in this instance. So you get Piers Morgan in the foreground and Trump in the background a little bit, and he's angled more. But for some reason, they always do the take a dump shot. But go ahead.
Rather than talking constantly about the last
I don't
election.
talk constantly, but you brought it up.
You
I
do,
didn't.
you do.
You brought it
Come
up.
on, eat away.
Excuse me. You brought it up. I didn't. I don't talk about it very much. I do say it was rigged. Mitch McConnell is stupid, and he shouldn't have allowed it to happen, but he did. But if you look at the results and if you look at what happened, but even you sitting here saying, well, that doesn't matter. But the law,
I think
the
facts
law
matter.
is, look,
I think
the
facts
law
matter.
is,
Mr.
even the
President, with
numbers.
respect, your own Vice President, Mike Pence, says you lost the election.
Mike was
The
foolish.
head of the Republicans
Mike
in the
was
Senate
foolish.
says you lost it.
Mike was foolish and he was weak.
Foolish and weak. Never do I talk about it. Here's the thing. They desperately want Trump to stay off of Twitter. And
Who's they? The Republicans?
The Republican Party.
Yeah.
They desperately want Trump to stay off Twitter. And he put out a statement as to whether he will be on Twitter. He wrote, well, he wrote, somebody put out a statement. He told Fox News in a statement, I am not going on Twitter. I'm going to stay on Truth. I guess Truth is his.
It's his new platform.
True Social, yeah, the new is his new platform.
How long has it been? Like, is anybody on it?
I
No.
don't think so.
He writes, I hope Elon buys Twitter because he'll make improvements to it and he is a good man, but I'm going to be staying on Truth. And Trump told Fox News he'll begin truthing over the next week.
I thought he meant like truth as in like the concept of like staying true to things. I didn't even know it wasn't a social media
truthing.
I think it's going to take about 15 minutes for him. Well, to tell you the truth, I'm going back on Twitter.
Actually, we're going to make a truth account on Twitter.
Elon Musk has announced he's buying Truth. That's what's going to happen.
I've decided to roll it in because Elon's such a great guy.
Great deal.
It is fascinating. I don't even know why he denies that he says this all the time. He just he does say it all the time. And
he specifically said when told this similar thing before, like, hey, aren't you bringing this up too much? He's like, I think it's good that I bring it up so much. I think we're going to need to bring it up to let people know how they are fooled.
It's almost like he's listening to advisors more now than he ever has in the past. That like they're saying you got to just downplay it a little bit in certain situations.
But don't those
He's in legal trouble. That's why his lawyers. I mean, he's in contempt of court right now.
Yeah, all they need to do is go back to that court and say, we made a good faith effort to find these documents and we couldn't find it. And, it's $10,000 a day. I'm sure he's draining the Republican national coffers anyways for it.
Do you get a sense that there's a formation behind DeSantis that wants to edge Trump out? And this is part of it too?
It's very possible.
Because I feel like he's getting a little bit more scrutiny about the Jan 6 thing, this, and there's another thing. And I just wonder like how they're going to try to edge him out of the paint.
I think they are. I think they are. I think they're definitely trying, but I don't see how they can.
But DeSantis also needs the operational force of Trump. Trump still has this organic organizing around the country, and DeSantis just doesn't have that. DeSantis just can't plop into Texas and Arizona. He could try. He has too many nemesis in these states, especially, Texas. So he needs Trump to ride Trump as far as possible, get Trump to endorse him, basically create a scenario where Trump doesn't have an option. But I don't know how you do that.
How do you? I don't understand. Like DeSantis has really just got to hope that Trump has like a coronary or something, right?
Yeah.
And has the ability, has a stroke and has the ability to say like Braun's my guy or something, and that's it.
Well, it's also kind of interesting that they now have the same center of gravity too, like being in Florida. Like they're both kind of courting the same like financiers and stuff, like in Florida, which I think is kind of like an interesting wrinkle as well.
There could be a deal with the Republican Party where the Republican Party may say we can't endorse Trump because there's a liability issue or whatever. They could come up with some legal, to remove him from the primary. Like if he does not qualify for specific rules within the RNC, no matter what, Donald Trump can't exist without the RNC. He just can't.
Don't you think though? Don't you think he just then runs as an independent?
As an independent?
Trump
but and then what? Like he has to get on the ballot in 50 states. I think the deadline's passed on many states at this point to get on the ballot to start a party. Oh, what am I talking about? Yes, 2024. Sorry. I don't know what year it is.
I think
time, space, continuum.
And here's the thing. Like, I don't even think if the RNC kept him off the ballot, I would see him run just to run against the RNC, even if he's not on the ballot. Like, it's just like, I'm holding rallies and I'm going to tell people to write my name in. Write my name in. Because the Republicans stabbed me in the back. The Mitch McConnell party. I don't even call him Ron DeSantis. I call him Ron McDonald. That's what I call him. Mitch McConnell, Ron DeDonald.
Ronald McConnell.
Ronald McConnell.
That's what I call him. That's what would happen. I hope he gets back on Twitter.
Yeah.
And let me just say this also about Elon Musk. Do we have anything to peg this? I don't even care. I could give a shit about Elon Musk buying Twitter. I just say, like, I could give a shit. The best part is going to be to see if that dude actually loses his $46 billion. I can't wait for this thing to be MySpace. Anyways, like as far as I'm concerned, I hope it turns into a cesspool and they bring back RSS feeds so I can just read the decent stuff.
It'd be so much easier.
I mean, honestly, let's play this Tucker Carlson clip. This is Tucker Carlson talking about how great it's going to be. I think
Tucker's not even on Twitter, right? He quit Twitter.
He didn't quit Twitter. He was suspended for a moment and then he deleted the tweet that got him suspended and he's back on.
He's back.
Play this clip of the Everyman, Tucker McNear Swanson Carlson, and here he is. This is such the case of the dog catching the parked car.
A good news show, don't get those too often. It's April 25th, 2022. Elon Musk bought Twitter today. That means that Twitter henceforth will be privately held. Elon Musk will determine what is allowed on the platform. Now, why is this significant? Not because it signals the sudden arrival of oligarchy, as you're hearing now. It's too late for that. Oligarchy is already here. Every major tech company is already controlled by billionaires. That's been the case for a long time. So this is nothing new. The reason today's sale of Twitter is big news, the reason it could turn out to be a pivot point in our history, is that Elon Musk does not agree with the rest of the billionaires in the tech business. Unlike the leaders of Facebook, Google, Apple, Amazon, Elon Musk believes in free speech. He thinks everyone should be allowed to talk, including people who disagree with him. I hope that even my worst critics remain on Twitter, Musk wrote today on his new platform, because that is what free speech means.
All right, pause it for 1 second. Let's just go back on some of this. This would be clear that when all of these tech behemoths started, they also allowed anything on there. Pedophilia, child pornography. That's
ISIS.
how AOL made its bones. I remember the late Barry Crimmins going down to Congress in the late 90s, mid 90s, testifying as to what was going on in these places. And they all knew about it. This is not new. If Elon Musk wants to have anybody out there and not going to censor anybody, everybody gets to speak. Put on the pedophiles and the child pornographers and the entire, let it all there. This isn't a pivot point. This isn't a pivot point in history. This guy's so like, great. Well, I can't wait to see the difference now that Twitter's going to have what morons, Stefan Molyneux or whoever. I mean, I don't even know who's been banned or not. Tucker Carlson. This ain't going to mean crap. It's just going to mean that these guys are going to be there and just more people are probably going to leave.
But you know who they're not going to cancel? The bots. Because Elon Musk saying, I welcome my nemesis. This is a guy who buys bots to go after people challenging him. This is like,
oh my God, this is a guy who called, somebody who challenged him on his like submarine rescue
the cave diving thing, the Thai cave diving thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Called him a pedophile.
Yeah. I mean, that question though about bots is like, how do you decide what is a bot and what is protected speech? Like these sorts of questions that as if it's just like simple cut and dried is silly.
Oh, there's going to be nothing better than to watch Elon Musk have to figure out how he's going to navigate this thing. They should open it up, let it turn to a cesspool, because I want to see this thing sink. And if it doesn't, I also don't give a crap. I couldn't give a crap about same stuff. I give a damn about it. Honestly, like this is so hilarious that they are rejoicing. And I should say, having billionaires own one more platform is increasing the oligarchy. Yes. It is not just and of course, Tucker
I guess we can't do anything about oligarchy now. This is how they do that. Oh, isn't oligarchy so bad? Well, I guess it's here now.
Yeah, a good thing that good thing that Tucker is in line to inherit millions upon millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. Otherwise, it might be an issue for him. But continue.
Thinks everyone should be allowed to talk, including people who disagree with him. I hope that even my worst critics remain on Twitter, Musk wrote today on his new platform, because that is what free speech means. Now, that sounds like an entirely American sentiment. But in this atmosphere, that is a revolutionary posture. Of the 5 companies that control the flow of virtually all information that's consumed by the citizens of this country, Twitter is by far the smallest of the group. But it doesn't matter. One platform going rogue is enough to break the monopoly. That means you now have real options for expressing yourself. Going forward, if you disagree with the administration's latest directive, you get to say so out loud to an audience. So they're up there every day from the podium, the biggest megaphone in the world, commanding you to hate this or that group, lecturing you about who's good and who's
All right,
evil.
pause it for 1 second. First off, people should notice that he is attempting to make an argument that this is against monopoly. Because the last thing that Tucker Carlson wants is genuine antitrust in this country to break the power of consolidated corporate power and money. That's the last thing he wants. So he's selling now to his rubes the idea that this is anti-monopoly. It is not anti-monopoly. Let's also be clear that just because they have a big platform, Jen Psaki or Joe Biden, it's not broadcast. People aren't watching that at all. This is the last time outside of this program, you've seen any of that. None of it. Well, you got to watch it on C-SPAN or something.
I love how he's always like they, as he says in the highest rated show on television, on cable news. They. Who, us? How many people are watching right now? 30,000 maybe?
Yeah, the powerful elites are coming after me, a top-rated cable host and the richest man in the world.
And I also want to know where's Mike Lindell? Why isn't Mike Lindell allowed to be on Fox News anymore? Yeah. What about Lara Logan? How come they are silencing Lara Logan? They are against the First Amendment because they won't let Mike Lindell onto Fox News. They won't let Lara Logan back onto Fox News. Who else have they banned?
Bill O'Reilly. Bring him back.
Yeah. Exactly. And bowling too was sidelined.
Oh my God. I mean, just because they don't want to hear the other opinion about all of those voting machines and the servers in Germany. But continue.
You get to say so out loud to an audience. So they're up there every day from the podium, the biggest megaphone in the world, commanding you to hate this or that group, lecturing you about who's good and who's evil, as if you're a child and have no right to decide for yourself these things, the basic things. But before today, you didn't have a right to express your disagreement in public. If you had an opposing opinion, or even more dangerous than that, if you had countervailing facts that undermine their storyline, the tech companies would shut you down immediately. It happened to us. It happened to a lot of people, most of whom you've never heard of. Never hearing about those people was the whole point of shutting them down. But that's over. After today, you'll be able to post your dissent in a place where other people might have a reasonable chance of seeing it. In other words, you will have a chance to change other people's minds, just like the White House does every day. So you just became a little more powerful. The people already in charge just became a little less powerful. It's that simple, and it's that profound.
Yes. So full.
I cannot negotiate with another country, last I checked, off of Twitter. But it's also confusing because he's confusing his audience with the point of a government. He's essentially saying like the corporation of Twitter owned by Elon Musk is now just as important as the official statements from the White House, which is representing the government of the United States. It's bizarre to me because I think there's something deeper there about like Elon Musk is the savior of our democracy, and like the fascism of the White House is what's really controlling all of you people, and that's why you're getting censored off Twitter, is because Joe Biden doesn't like you and doesn't want to hear your voice, and Elon Musk is here to save it.
Yeah. And the thing is if Elon does this, I'm genuinely curious to see what he does, because if he actually does remove certain things that makes Twitter more open and free speechy, the things that come to mind are like hidden replies or limited replies even, or open DMs. And celebrities are not going to use the Twitter if they have to see every single person's replies to their tweets and stuff.
Absolutely.
And so and my guess is he's not going to touch that.
No. And Wyoming Ryan has a good point too. Elon says he will authenticate all humans, and the only way to do that is with more personal information. Hey, I'm gonna put in my social security number into Twitter. I don't think so.
No, I don't think he needs that. Don't forget, this is a guy who has a deal with the government. I mean, aside from this, maybe this is a really good moment for the Senate to discuss all of the other deals that he has with our government related to security, just like Peter Thiel does. I mean, is he going to use one for the other?
I'm so excited to see how this turns out. Honestly, I am, aside from me not giving a crap about it, the only thing that actually interests me is to see how much of a train wreck this is going to be. This is the dude who invented tunnels, he thinks.
Yes. And trains. Don't forget, there's a faster way to get across the country, guys. To escape traffic, it's called a train.
It should be interesting. I do think it should be interesting. As much as like I could care less. The idea that someone went out and spent $46 billion. You could solve homelessness in this country for $46 billion.
For less than that.
Yeah.
$46 billion for a vanity project. It's a vanity I mean, maybe it is a way of like of gathering data that he can sell. But man,
I mean, his main job, the main thing he does all day is promote himself. I think people that think he's in the engineer booth, like trying to figure out what calculations to make is silly. So of course he'd want a giant propaganda organ.
Yep.
It's also dangerous in terms of I mean, all the conversations we had about Cambridge Analytica look so baby compared to this. This is right before a pivotal election.
I don't think Twitter has the ability to impact elections in the way that, let's say, Facebook did.
I think they're very different. Facebook is a networking organ. Conversations begin on Twitter, are driven on Twitter. Narratives are
yeah, but
this is how you create. I mean, we do it in other countries, right? We plant seeds of ideas, and then a revolution is sparked. I think it's very similar in terms of how you spread ideas.
I think this is going to increase the noise to signal ratio on Twitter. And I think it's going to end up having, I think Twitter is going to end up having less influence, not more, in the analysis. Because it really, Twitter, to the extent that it has influence, it influences journalists, right? It's not in the same way that Facebook, gets, I just think that Facebook has a different sort of profile with people. Twitter impacts journalists. And I think as the noise to signal ratio increases, it's going to be less of a valuable tool to journalists.
But it's also, stories are broken, journalists and stories. So, when AOC tweets something or when somebody responds to something, it's a New York Post article. And then it's then it's a segment on Tucker. And then there's Facebook groups that are forming. They're all connected to each other. They're not isolated. One influences the other and the other influences the other.
But with let's say, with I don't know, Crowder not being banned on Twitter or whoever it is that has been, shadow banned on Twitter. And they come how's that going to change? What do
you mean?
How's that going to, what's going to change? I think it's just going to be, Twitter's just going to be less sort of usable for people. That's all. I mean,
it's already pretty bad. It's like, it's like it's full of bots. I mean, I found out I lost all these followers and I realized there was a bot. There were bots that were following me because whatever. Maybe at one point they liked what I was saying about the DNC. I don't know. What's real?
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. I just don't. I think the impact of this is going to be not at all the way that the narrative is being spun about it. I think I don't know that Tucker's going to be doing segments on Twitter 6 months from now saying this is a crap show because they're just going to pretend like it doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, that's gonna be interesting. But Jack Dorsey didn't have great politics either.
But
exactly.
Do you guys remember this from November? I'm just seeing it from the AP that apparently he asked the UN and the World Health Organization or the World Food Organization to produce a presentation for him about how he could spend his $6 billion of Tesla shares to cure world hunger. They literally gave him a presentation and then he didn't do anything about it.
Yeah.
So
I appreciate the presentation, but it seems that MySpace is available. So I'm going to
social.
Let's see. World hunger. the next Friendster.
Nice.
What should I go for?
I remember that at the time, and like we talked about on Left Reckoning, and the point was like you can't take this guy seriously. Like all he's in there for is the headline that says Elon Musk wants a detailed, because all he wants to do is cast doubt on those figures that like it's that easy to solve this stuff. And he got his headline, and so of course he doesn't actually want to feed people.
He's like a nouveau Trump. It's this generation Gen X Trump, built off of his daddy's money, puts his name on a bunch of things, claims credit for it, and it's like House of Cards. I don't know, oligarchy, I guess.
All right, let's Kevin McCarthy, what do you do if you're afraid that you've gotten on the wrong side of Donald Trump and the Republican Party? Well, of course, you head for the border. Is it to leave the country? No, it's just to stay there and do interviews there. And that's exactly what Kevin McCarthy did. Here he is joining Fox Live at the border because that's where the Mexican people might be.
I want to switch gears a little bit because you are looking to be speaker again if Republicans win. And to that point, you know what's out there. The New York Times has released audio of you where days after January 6th, you're on a call with House Republican leadership, and you're heard on that audio saying that you've, quote, had enough with President Trump, and that you would tell him to his face it would be your belief that he should resign. Do you
I'm sorry,
still
can we
stand by those
pause it
comments?
and go back to when his fake smile comes on based upon his media training? Here we go. As soon as this is how it works, folks. When you get asked an uncomfortable question that you don't want, the way you register, this is not a problem for me, is you do a half laugh, you keep that smile planted on there. You want to make sure I'm not pissed off about this question. Here we go. Watch Kevin McCarthy's mouth.
Speaker again if Republicans win. And to that point, you know what's out there. The New York Times has released audio of you where days after January 6th, you're on a call with House Republican leadership, and you're heard on that audio saying that you've, quote, had enough with President Trump, and that you would tell him to his face it would be your belief that he should resign. Do you still stand by those comments?
Look, I never told the president to resign. It was a conversation that we had about scenarios going forward. But that's not really what critical happened 15 months ago. What's happening is what's happening on this border right now. Our border is not secure. 160 different countries of people are coming across. We now have enough fentanyl in America to kill every American 7 times over, and it's actually doing it. It's the #1 cause of death to Americans between the ages of 18 and 45. This is real life things happening today, and this is what we need to be focused on.
And regarding that audio tape, you had said the New York Times reporting on it was, quote, false and wrong. Then the tape came out. Did you lie?
No, because what was brought to me is said that I called the president to say that to resign. I never called the president to say resign. He and I have a very good relationship as we go through. But what really needs to happen here is we're watching what's happening in this country. A border that's not secure, inflation continuing to rise every day, streets that are not safe, parents that are being attacked by the attorney general saying that somehow they're terrorists because they want to go to school board meetings. That all changes when Republicans take the majority.
Does the fact that this audio was leaked in the first place mean that there are some Republicans out there who have some knives out for you?
I think it's probably a little more of the Democrat side as well. I mean, Elizabeth Warren, Adam Schiff, and Swalwell, those people won't be on Intel anymore. And that's okay. You could judge me by my enemies. I think I'll be a good judgment.
Final question on this topic.
Good judgment. Wait, pause it. Wait. First off, it was the Democrats who were on this private conversation with me,
Liz Cheney.
You got to work on your operational security.
Yeah. And but you know what he was trying to say there? That he was trying to imply that he was spied on by the U.S. government.
Right, the old Tucker defense.
Right, like the NSA was monitoring my calls.
Elizabeth Warren,
deep state, Elizabeth Warren in
on
her
Intel
office with like headphones, going, "Oh, check this out! Keep them talking. We can trace the call."
Go to 1500 hertz.
Dogged questioning by Bill Malugin, though. Great. So about that audio.
This dude's part of the Great Resignation. It sounds like.
I'm so curious though. Like, what's his other reporting like? Is he?
Yeah, I'd be curious about this. I wonder if he's maybe just a Trumper and wants to. Right. But go ahead.
But super smart though.
Yeah,
because he's good.
The Democrat side as well. I mean, Elizabeth Warren, Adam Schiff, and Swalwell. Those people won't be on Intel anymore, and that's okay. You could judge me by my enemies. I think I'll be a good judgment.
Final question on this topic. Let's say Republicans win you're speaker again, or you seek to be speaker again, do you think this tape has any impact on that?
No, I don't think it has any impact at all. What really has impact is what we're doing today to make sure Title 42 does not get lifted. That you got a Biden administration that has opened up this border, that you're now having people on the terrorist watch list coming across into America.
All right. This is if I wanted to teach a course on how do you change a topic, this is what I would teach. You find the thing that is going to be the best backdrop for you. This is where you do your first interview and address the audio tape for the first time, right? Literally on the border. So your pivoting to the border is seamless. And this is something that Democrats don't seem to have any concept of. You want to change the topic from Joe Biden shaking nobody's hand or whatever it is. You need to have another narrative.
That's
and you
right.
change the topic. That's basically what it is. This is
it's
basic 101. And
when you go on
Democrats
Fox
don't seem to
News,
give
that's what you do too. Like same thing. Tucker asks you one thing, you say, "Oh, by the way, look over here." It's 101 messaging. And it's not that I think Democrats like being on defense. I think there's something about the addiction, the adrenaline, and the money they can raise by saying, see, we're being attacked on these issues, with some of them. And then they have no problem ignoring others. But for the most part, they're making these things issues because they want that culture war. They want these wars too.
But Republicans also talk about being attacked. That's their entire, you take away the attack. That's what the whole Elon Musk thing is.
They control the landscape. They need to be the victims because they're the ones in power. What I'm saying is Democrats, they want to distract away from the economic issues, clearly. So they buy into these culture war attacks. They're buying in, playing this game of Title 42 and fentanyl. MSNBC was talking about fentanyl all day yesterday. They're literally just mimicking the alternate version of the Republican talking points, or sometimes even agreeing with a slightly nuanced, different perspective.
I guess you got a lot of Democrats who are coming saying don't reverse Title 42. They should be just out there promoting other things. And that's it. Bottom line, either COVID is a problem or it's not. And they're just what's the narrative from leadership? Did Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi, are they on extended vacation?
We haven't talked about it, but there's a bipartisan climate thing in the works.
Oh, yeah. No, I read that. Joe Manchin might be open to a bipartisan climate thing. Phew. Sure. Okay. Give me a break. It's unbelievable. Cancel student debt. Make them talk about student debt.
Sam, you're operating from a place where you think that that's actually what they want to do.
No, I'm not even talking about what they want to do. I don't think they want to do any of that. They're willing to do more, but I'm talking about change the subject, get on some type of narrative. Instead, they're just constantly like, maybe nobody will notice we're here. That's the strategy.
That's the strategy. That's the game. Because if they have to champion something, they're going to have to champion something that either won't succeed, like BBB, because they've got too many people in the party. Let's just take it on good faith. Maybe operating good faith. Joe Biden doesn't know what to do with Joe Manchin. So instead of creating another scenario where he loses another critical piece of legislation that has to deal with the recovery of this country to Joe Manchin, that's just another failure of Joe Biden. And so the response is Joe Biden fails. He can't lead. Let's just operate from that place. That's, good faith. But ultimately, I'm not even operating from that place. You don't think that Joe Biden can't get on the phone with some Republican in the Senate and say, Mitt Romney, you don't think Mitt Romney going home to Utah and saying, we passed BBD and I championed it? I think he'd still get reelected. I don't think he has any issue.
I don't know that Mitt Romney wants to pass that.
Well, the funny thing is they never got a phone call. Yet there's all these other things they had no problems. They got phone calls for. But BBB, the big thing that he's supposed to champion, it's going to define his legacy. He doesn't pick up the phone and call Susan Collins and Mitt Romney once.
But if that's your belief, then why wouldn't he have another losing legislation? If they thought it was so successful to present BBB and then lose, why not do it again?
because they can blame Joe Manchin.
I mean,
and then they have to get rid of Joe Manchin. It's not just one time. It's like, okay, now Joe Manchin's the biggest issue the Democrats have, so we have to get rid of him.
The Biden administration wanted to get rid of Joe Manchin? Like that was the
No,
political agenda?
I'm saying if you keep losing to Joe Manchin, then suddenly the story is not about this piece of legislation is going too far and it's too left. It's Joe Manchin's a problem in the Democratic Party.
Well, I mean, that may be the case, but I just don't understand the logic behind thinking that they didn't that it wasn't important to them to get Mitt Romney to vote for BBB, that they were more interested in it failing than like why, like I don't understand, like why go through all that? All it did is hurt him politically.
I don't know.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
why
If
I
we're
don't
operating
believe
from
that's
a
the case.
place of good, I mean, I do think it's peculiar that they didn't make one phone call to two Republicans who might actually vote for this
do you
or
know
could
that they
negotiate.
didn't?
Yes, they came out and said it. They didn't get a phone call from the White House. I was like,
I mean, I maybe they just thought they couldn't get him. I mean, you know, the primary screw up was to invite the Republicans into the White House to start the whole process off, right? I mean, they invited them into the White House a year ago today, probably, or May.
Yeah.
As soon and they had 15 of them show up, and then that didn't work, and then they had Sinema and Portman show up, and they spent months on that. And you know, I can understand why they were afraid to do that again. Didn't work the first time.
I mean, but it doesn't, there's a difference between inviting them into the White House and when Joe Manchin's really, you know, sticking it to them to make one phone call to Mitt Romney and say, what can I, you know,
Why
is
would
there
Mitt
any
Romney
movement?
do that?
Why? I mean, he came out and he said, I never got a phone call. So
okay, well, you never got a phone call.
Maybe there was something.
But why would Mitt Romney ever, if he has any desire to have anything other than be senator from Utah, which I think he could survive it, maybe.
I think he could.
It certainly would make his life harder, right? In Utah, it wouldn't help him in any way in Utah. Why would Mitt Romney give a shit about any of those proposals?
Why did he vote for Justice Brown? I mean,
his dad marched with Martin Luther King. I mean, he may actually have some sentiment that I shouldn't vote against the first Black woman to sit on the Supreme Court. It's not going to implicate anything anyways. I mean, that's a much less, voting for a nominee is a much higher, lower bar than voting for legislation. Ask Russ Feingold. You know, I mean, you know, that's, I don't think those are comparable.
Doesn't mean we don't try. I mean, my perspective is if Joe Biden was talking about, you know, he ran on being the senator who can cross party lines and bring dignity back. The guy didn't even make a phone call to one Republican on his critical piece of legislation, which was already watered down so much that Mitt Romney might have actually supported it.
I'll tell you something.
Earn income to tax credits.
I would be willing to bet that Mitt Romney would have never voted for that in a million years.
Possibly.
And if it came out that they called Mitt Romney, there's no doubt in my mind, I would be like, are you kidding me? How deluded are these people?
No, but here's the thing. If you put him in a position, this is somebody who is out there as a moderate in the Republican Party. He's probably not vulnerable in Utah, but maybe Susan Collins is. You know, you now put these moderates in positions where they have to go back to their state, which can come down to a few votes. You put them in a position where they're the ones who held this up, and maybe they're vulnerable, and you have a new, you know, red to blue state. I don't know what it is, but you have to try. The point is Democrats just don't do anything. They don't have operations around the country. They don't message.
It a year ago.
They got nothing.
The administration blew it a year ago. He was never going to get Susan Collins. He was never going to get. That's why they didn't have to. They voted for. What?
Try. It's not the point. Try.
I don't know.
I don't care if you do or you don't.
Well, I understand, but they tried. They had the Republicans in the White House a year ago. That they didn't do a phone call when it was clear that Joe Manchin was going to take the blame for this not passing. I just don't. Again, I would have just been like, they're deluded.
Yeah,
they're deluded. It would have hurt them with the Democrats, I think, had they tried to do something like that. But
I don't know.
All right, let's do some IMs here. Excuse me.
Dayen developer. Glad to see you back in the studio. I'm feeling good, Sam. The whole team is awesome. Keep up the awesome work. Thank you. Tomalo Fink. Happy Newsday Tuesday. Welcome back, Sam. Glad you're feeling better. Emma, Matt, Bradley, Binder, Brandon, and Nomiki have all done a great job in your absence, as everyone under normal circumstances, while Macron is clearly preferable to Le Pen. Macron and his sycophants should understand that not being a neo-fascist isn't an achievement. It's literally a bare minimum for a decent human being. I saw some polling that showed 9% of people were voting for Macron as opposed to against Le Pen. I imagine that sounds a little bit low, but
it was definitely
that's the dynamic.
Voting for, I get what you're saying.
Smart electorate. Yeah. Voting against.
Yeah. I mean, I think that was part of the dynamic, obviously, with Joe Biden too.
Of course.
But Talia from Tampa. Sam, you capitalist tyrant. I know you gave Emma the day off in retaliation for her organizational efforts in your absence. Someone needs to get to the NLRB involved. In all seriousness, no, glad you're back. Forgive me for being sassy today. I'm bitter about still living in Florida. Have you read my email? Welcome back to the studio, Sam. The Apple mail is back. Alsup Brass password. Hey, Sam, can you get Nathan J. Robinson and an employee from the Current Affairs Organizing Committee on to talk about whatever happened there and where they're at now, probably at different times?
It's been a while.
I guess I'd have some interest in that, but not, a lot, to be honest with you. It seems like it would be a narrow topic. What's happening in this one particular magazine with six employees.
It also was a year ago at this point.
Yeah, I don't know. But maybe. Between the 101 and the 5, I think the tech oligarchs are the new Gilded Era Rockefellers, and seeing the tech industries, which ostensibly have skirted antitrust and all the New Deal era regulations, unionize is also pretty amazing for the future of power labor. And Dayen's point about it creating an electoral effect is supremely important in the severe inability to deal with climate change through electoral politics and legislation, but also within the sphere of tech oligarchy. That are nominally taking on this role of teching our way out of climate disaster. Summer of Sam Seder. Hey, Sam, have you ever heard of Huey Long, New Deal Democrat from Louisiana that fought a bona fide and figuratively bloody battle for universal basic income? Actually was gaining traction, turned literally bloody, and he was assassinated on the floor of the state capitol. I just recently learned about this story. Yes, he had a brother down there, too. He was a big populist.
Yeah.
Drip Coffee. When's the next caravan going to drop? Illuminati. I don't think it's so odd that Green had Mark Meadows' number so early. From what I hear, that type of important contact information is disseminated pretty early in Congress. For example, all freshman Dems are immediately issued the code to Dianne Feinstein's Life Alert.
That's horrible.
Tojo's bald head. Who is this guy and when is Emma coming back? He's so low energy. Hey, Bradley, enjoy Debo Samuel. Thank you for the first round picks.
That hasn't happened yet.
Los Tacos. You should add Nutrafol to your sponsors page on majority.fm, FYI. Yes, we've got to update that. Roni fan, MGT and the GOP hatred of immigrants is a synthesis of hatred and darker skin of the poor. My direct and extended family were all illegal immigrants, but came over on a plane. They have had very fortunate lives here, and some have become multimillionaires. They're constantly getting calls from the local GOP for campaign cash. These representatives know they came here illegally, but they don't hide it. But the money is more important than the principles, no doubt. Ryan from Michigan. In Chicago, in college, I was a person who defended George Bush and leaned libertarian. After becoming a teacher and getting to know more people, I began to realize how wrong some of those views were. Your show helped me find a political home. I am now the vice president of my union and helping to negotiate a contract that is fixing some huge issues in my community. Thank you. Thank you, Ryan.
That's great.
Militant apathy. He was never going to get the votes for BBB, period. Utah just gave Mike Lee a standing ovation. Pilot season reference. Sandy Jacoby gave me John in San Antonio vibes. Didn't Emma say that?
Emma said that too, yeah.
We had a lot of that in chat yesterday.
Mr. Massachusetts from Massachusetts. SEIU 509 is my union, but I'm a lowly shop steward. But if the listener from yesterday is serious about unionizing, I could get him in touch with an organizer. Not sure how to reach out without doxing myself. I'll send an email to MR or something. Left is best. Yes, and go into the Discord. This is where we try and send people. mrdiscord.com. This is a great place to hook up. People will there's like electricity in there.
I'm in the Discord now.
Boom.
I'm in there. Me and Matthew Film Guy.
Dessert quality. Manchin will lose. Even Bonzo Nate Silver pointed out that Manchin's increased approval rating in West Virginia. It doesn't mean squat. Head to head against a Republican, he will lose in 2024. It's the same when we saw Sinema's approval go up in Arizona Republicans. Dayen is exactly right. It's just because they like that they are screwing over Democrats. It won't translate into votes.
The difference is with Arizona, you have like just as many independents. So it's with independents, her approval rating went down, and with Democrats, her approval rating went down. So she's actually quite vulnerable as of today. But like, who knows what's going to look like in a few years.
A Square, welcome back, Sam. Sure you heard our comments on the outstanding job Emma, Matt, and Bradley did. I think if no raise, those MR union discussions are advancing every time you bring Dayen on. I think is there anything the Republicans have missed? Got the federal court in SCOTUS, gerrymandering, captured Democratic senators like Manchin. Roger Ailes built them a huge propaganda machine, had force multipliers like Limbaugh since the 90s, and have Dems as witting accomplices. As much as this Amazon labor win is a bright light, sure, the Oppo research on Smalls is intense right now. Is there any other bright light you see? The prospect of DeSantis or Trump presidency in a unified government control again by these retrogrades is just horrible. Do I see any other bright lights?
I would just say on the Smalls Oppo research thing, like Amazon thought that he was a great target for that sort of thing, and he beat him. So
yeah,
it's too hard now. It's like he's too big.
Well, and I think the other thing is it's I don't even know if it's that he's too big as much as like the audience that he needs is not the one that they're playing to.
That's
like,
right.
It doesn't matter if he goes on MSNBC. Right. I mean, it really, really doesn't matter.
Tucker for that matter.
Or Tucker for that matter, whomever. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It is the people that he's organizing, they don't watch those shows anyways.
Unless they're trying to stop future ones. Unless they're trying to I don't even know if it's as much about that facility in Staten Island as much as it is about killing this movement. But the point is that those people in that same facility in, I don't know, whatever, Dubuque or, wherever it is in Lincoln, Nebraska, I don't know. Well, it doesn't matter. They're also not watching MSNBC. But he's now a person. Okay, so like it's just like saying, well, it doesn't matter. AOC is just one vote, but AOC is a figure who's transforming conversations and inspiring other people to run to do this. So if they want to character assassinate him, he's not a politician, so it doesn't stick the same way. Character assassinate him so he doesn't spread his message, whether it's on MSNBC or other places.
But the point is that he's going to go to these places, and how do you character assassinate? It's one thing to character assassinate a congressperson because there is supposedly like there's a certain sort of framework in which a congressperson should fit in. The assassinations that they're doing, like the guy was giving out free weed. Yeah. Guess what?
Who cares?
That's not going to cut against him.
Yeah.
That may cut against him, at MSNBC. What's he doing giving out free weed? We can't have somebody on our who's giving out free weed, but that's not going to cut against him, when he's outside a warehouse for Amazon. Like that was the thing that in that Ryan Grimm piece that came, or I guess it was in the HuffPost piece about where, because they were able to organize on the, in the facility itself, they could follow around consultants. And after they had spoken to people on the floor, they could show the filing where it showed like this person made $20,000 this week being there. Like, the only way they can undercut Smalls is if he starts making, some big bank and they's perceived as doing it because he's making money off it. And frankly, the way that they're trying to assassinate his character is going to inhibit his ability to make that kind of money.
He's also not entering any of these like internecine battles that like people want him to. He's not firing shots at Bernie or AOC. He's not giving into that. He's just saying, if you want to be here, be here.
Right. He's using his leverage in a good faith way.
Right.
Which is
He's focused. He's working. He's still out there trying to get the votes.
But
this is the guy who slept in the parking lot of Amazon. He was so dedicated to this. He would take interviews from the car and say, I gotta go back in. Like, this is not into the facility, but into the parking lot area. He's focused. This is his life right now. I don't know.
Cattletown Napper. Would be nice to see a return or at least a spread of union badges on workplaces and products. Early labor movement effort in the U.S. use those as carrot to businesses. Would also be like to be able to focus my money on union shops, and it's easier if the shop or products have that displayed clearly. I mean, I remember as a kid, those commercials look for the union label.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember those?
I remember the movement about it. Look for the union. Yeah, I grew up in Buffalo, Uniontown. Hell yeah.
I don't know if they did those commercials back then.
I don't know commercials. I know the movement. Look for the union label.
I bought 2 tickets for the Big Live show. I've never been to Boston before. What's good to eat there? I've got Boston cream pies, clam chowder, baked beans on my list. Any of those things to try with any suggestions from the MR crew or chat? Yeah, I would say go for a famous Boston muffin. No, I'm joking. No, clam chowder, you're doing yourself right. Baked beans, I never knew what that meant. Boston baked beans. It's just.
Wait, the clam chowder? Which one is? So is Boston New England?
Yeah.
Clam chowder. Is that the creamy one or the other one?
That's the creamy one. That's the. If you're in Rhode Island, it's like more brothy, clear. Manhattan is red. But Boston clam chowder is. They say legal seafood is some of the best clam chowder, but I would get it. I would go every place. You get it. And cod and haddock.
Worst fish.
Hey, but you get them fresh. Boston. I'm trying to think what else. Sam Adams beer.
Dunkin'
Donuts.
Is Dunkin' Donuts from Boston?
Yeah.
What?
Dunkin' Donuts. Well, I don't know if it's from Boston per se. I feel like it's
New England.
Yeah, no, it's outside of Boston. I feel like the first one was. Spocko, I always love to see David Dayen on the show, but I want to hear more about postal banking. Hearing about postal banking always gives me hope versus the despair we hear all the time. MR saved me. Yes, I do need Sam and Emma. MR is my voice of reason. All right, where are we in terms of time? Okay. I'm not going over today, folks, because I am too fried. Rando, regarding the PA Senate primary, do you think we need consolidation between Fetterman and Kenyatta, similar to what happened for Biden? What is the daylight between them based upon what you've seen?
Oh boy.
My answer is yes, that everyone needs to consolidate around Fetterman. Kenyatta is a little bit of I've just decided to become a progressive now type of candidate. And
but Fetterman too.
Well,
Fetterman has raised issues.
I just think he's just more viable overall. That's just my thinking. I agree with you though, Nomi.
I go with the polling on that. All right, 3 more. Dave from Jamaica. Looks like Tucker is reading some of the tripe that Glenn writes. It just seems to me free speech, just code word for saying racist shit. Prediction, Twitter going down. I think Musk will try and add some sort of paid features. Yeah, I would. Of course. If I had to bet, I would say user numbers go down, monetizing goes up, but 46 billion, there's no way to short this now, right? It's not a public company.
I wonder if he's going to charge like politicians to tweet like as a press release service, because it is a vital part of getting their message out. Or are we giving him ideas now?
Yeah, it's to tweet more than 20 times a day, that'll be $2 billion.
Yeah,
exactly. That's the key.
Oh my God.
I would love it if it was one of those like, buy your need type of situations. Like if you are a billionaire, each tweet will cost you $100 million.
That'd be funny.
You know, I think this is gonna. I honestly do think that it's gonna be fucking hilarious at one point when we realize like this.
Oh my God.
They every dream that they pretended to have, because I don't even think they give a shit. I think this is all like the libs are gonna be so pissed that Elon Musk owns this thing that it's gonna be awesome, and then all of a sudden it's just gonna be like, oh yeah, he can't figure it out either.
Or he's doing that intentionally just to kill it, and then he blames the libs for being such, you know.
Honestly, if you spend $46 billion
Mm-hmm.
to just kill Twitter,
that's right.
I honestly think that you should be imprisoned. And frankly, I think you should be imprisoned if you have the ability to spend $46 billion on anything. I would put that into. I think that should be like that gets you 6 months in prison.
It's an attack on vital communications infrastructure.
100%. But if it gets to that point where it's like about to die, or the user, I mean, they let it just, the user base goes down, 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 and it's like sinking. I mean, at what point does the government do anything? Do we ever say, like, do we want to turn this into a public utility? Because it is vital. You're right.
I just let a new one develop.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you, if the government takes it over and turns it into a public utility, how do you how do you change it? How do you have moderation? Do you have content moderation with the government owning it? I don't see how you could do that.
Not my job.
No, but I mean, but if we would want that,
validated
you like postal service control or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it would have benefits in the sense that you remove all like the algorithmic and stuff like that. But yeah, you would have a problem of speech.
Yeah, you'd have a legitimate speech problem at that point. I think what it should just be is let it drop in a subscriber base, and then have a rival one. So you can have one, choose the one that you want with a certain amount of moderation that you want, content moderation. But like,
I mean, it could be a scenario where like just like in a public space, whether you're on the street corner, like what are you protected by legally? And that's what the rules are in a public utility space. The algorithm's transparent, it's more equalized. I don't know how you do that. Everybody who's an actual human being has the right to be on the platform with some sort of validity, like Facebook, for instance, does that. And, free speech is protected just as it is in the public arena.
I guess.
I don't know.
Bear at home too. So glad Sam is back to push back on spurious claims. Definitely missed that. Okay, two more. Jules Winfield. Sam, what do you and the crew think about the problem Fetterman is having with Pennsylvania because of the drama with a gun back in 2013?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that is problematic, but hopefully,
Well, Lamb's been hammering that, and it hasn't really seemed to be super impactful. But yes, of course, it's like a real stain on him as a person.
I imagine it's going to hurt him more in the Democratic Party than it will in the general election.
Unless it keeps the base, like a certain base, people of color not willing to vote for him, because it's just like Hillary Clinton. She had certain parts of her base didn't turn out because she just.
It's something for Connor Lamb to be promoting that stuff. But.
Yeah, really. All right, and the final IM of the day. Jay Tingle. Even Bob Hope appeared in the Look for the Union label. He said, "You'd better believe it matters to me." Matt, Bradley, Nomi, great job today. See you folks tomorrow.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the lie bar, but finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot fix you. Yeah,